Good morning, Foundation family. How you doing? Where are you sitting at right now? Where are you sitting right now? We are standing in my house, and this is Foundation at Home. Welcome to it. The first Sunday of every year, this is what we do. We do Foundation at Home. We wrap up the Christmas season with Christmas Eve, and then the first Sunday of the year, we just say, hey, we're going to reset and do things a little bit differently, where we do a pre-recorded kind of like one big, enormous object lesson, the entire thing, and we're pretty excited to bring it to you. But first, before we get there, before we get to all that jazz, we've got some things to handle here. I'm wondering, how was your 2021? Right? And I know there was a lot of complications and obstacles, but when we look back, there's some pretty incredible moments. What were some of your great moments from 2021? Just throw them in the comments real quick. I'll give you like 15 seconds. Okay, not 15 seconds. That'd be dead air time. Just hurry. Put them in there right now, because we are going to tell you our top 5 foundation moments, starting with number 5, and Adam with Ruth Hill Elementary School.
Yeah, Ruth Hill was a big deal to us. Here's why. When the tornado happened, we woke up on Sunday morning and we didn't have a place to do gatherings. Now, we made Easter happen, but still, as a staff, we were trying to figure out, hey, where are we going to meet? And then out of the blue, the principal from Ruth Hill Elementary, Dr. Corley, gave us a call. And he admitted, hey, our space isn't perfect for your gatherings, but if we can make it work, we would love to. And for us as a staff and as a church, it was really cool to have a principal from the school that we had been pouring so much time and energy and love into just reach out to us. We didn't have to reach out to him. And so that just meant a lot to us. And so number 5 was being able to have our gatherings at Ruth Hill Elementary. Yeah. But number 4 for us this year was our Christmas season.
Foundation had a blast this Christmas season, probably one of the best yet.
Come on.
We got the chance to be a part of a lot of Newnan events like Santa on the Square, where Foundation got to take all of the Santa portraits for Newnan families, and even the Christmas parade, which of course we came in first in our category. Yep, and obviously a disco ball snowman, you can't go wrong.
Do you remember?
Also, we got the chance to host the Christmas concert this year, which brought, honestly, the best Christmas cheer to the season. And, of course, the Christmas Eve gatherings. We held 3 in person at the Ruth Hill Elementary School, and we passed out Krispy Kreme donuts. So tell us how this turned out. We'd love to know how many you ate, so tell us in the comments. And this year we got to have number 3, Pumpkins in the Park event.
Pumpkins in the Park was incredible for 2021 because we got to be back in the community. And that meant we got to pass out 300 pumpkins to families, and 150 kiddos got to decorate pumpkins. And that was just incredible. It was awesome seeing the faces and spending time with so many Newnan families. And it was also incredible that over 200 families texted in. That was huge. And it was even more special that a lot of those families took next steps to be a part of some of our special Christmas season events. So it was just awesome, and a time that we definitely are grateful that we had the opportunity to be a part of. And then coming in at number 2 is Base Camp.
So this year we found out about Base Camp. It was something that seemed so far off. And honestly, since 2017, we've been loading in and loading out. And we were completely fine with that because it meant that we were in the heart of the community and where the people were. And we could load in and load out forever. We were totally okay with that. But this opportunity presented itself in Base Camp that would put us right in the heart of Newnan, right in downtown. It's exactly where our community is. It's exactly where the people are. And so we are so excited for this year to take this next step of Base Camp. We want to thank all of you guys for partnering with us to make Base Camp a reality. It's been an incredible year, and we're looking forward to Base Camp in 2022. Coming in at number 1 is actually a really heartbreaking moment. But what makes it incredible is the response of the team that made it possible to love on the people of our community. So coming in number 1 is the Tornado Recovery and Response Teams.
Yeah, on March 26th, our community experienced something that we had never experienced before. An EF4 tornado came up Smoky Road past the high school all the way into the chalk level area of downtown Newnan. Over 1,700 homes were affected, hundreds of families displaced, and the community just didn't really know how to respond initially. And I'm super proud that our church was able to mobilize quickly and to set up a receiving center and a distribution center at what we will know as Base Camp. Over 200,000 items were brought in and pushed out to community partners during that week. Over 10,000 hot meals were delivered to folks who couldn't even get out of their driveways. We had over 700 volunteers connect with us that week, and over 50 homes begin to be cleaned up. It was an incredible week of us showing compassion to our community. So Foundation Fam, we're excited and we're thankful that you guys jumped in to be a part of that. If you weren't a part of Foundation in that time, we created a video in that first week to show a little bit of our response. We're going to show that video again now.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. And I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter and I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. And I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. And I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
Hey, if you notice, there's a timer on the screen that is counting down until our teaching starts. So if you need to get your popcorn, refill your drink, now is the time to do that. But while we're counting down, I thought it would be fun for us to play a game together, including you. And so grab your phone, open up Facebook, because we want you to put in the comments what you think the answers are. Now, if you're with a group, then you get a little extra minds towards the question to try to figure it out. It's like trivia style, all right? So we're going to play a little bit of trivia together. Go ahead and hop on Facebook. 100% we're keeping score. Yes, Clint's going to mail the prize. I'm just kidding. We don't have any prizes, but for sure, we want to know who wins bragging rights. We want to know who wins. So our trivia for today is New Year's Eve themed. As we're thinking about what's next for the next year, I thought it'd be fun to ask some New Year's questions. So we're going to do 5 questions. They're going to answer on the screen. Here we go. All right, so New Year's Eve, there's the tradition that you give a New Year's Eve kiss or a New Year's kiss. Who started that tradition? So, like, what people? Yeah, where did it come from? Just who started the Christmas tradition? Or not Christmas. The New Year's Eve tradition of giving a kiss on New Year's. It came. You got about 10 more seconds. So throw it in the comments. Where do you think it came from?
Oh, look at my answer.
All right, put it in there. I'll give you 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Let's see your answer. Let's see. And not, so it came from the Roman Empire. That's who started it, the Romans. Did anybody get it right? We'll see. We're gonna check the comments to see if anybody got it right. That was tough. Okay, here we go. 45% of Americans make New Year's resolutions. All right, so the question is what percent of those actually lose and don't keep their New Year's resolution by the second week of January? So what percent of people actually are over their New Year's resolution by the second week? Yes. So we're just trying to figure out what percent of people actually are done with their New Year's resolution by the second week of January. Right. They failed at it. So we're only 14 days in and those resolutions are done. What percent of that? We'll give you 10 more seconds. 43% of people are done with it. Okay. That's it. 60, 65. Wow. Looky there. All the votes are in. Hurry up, put it in there. It actually shows that over 62% who was close. Jason, looky there. All right. Hey, has anybody ever been to Times Square for New Year's Eve? Anybody watch the job? Really? Wow. All right, so Robin should know this. All right. So I just... That doesn't mean you have to wear a diaper. Anyways, so a big part of that celebration is all the confetti. How many pounds of confetti is dropped? How many pounds of confetti is dropped on New Year's Eve? Times Square. That's what we're looking for. It's way more than that. Put it in the comments. You got to write it on your clipboard. 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, put it in there. Let's see. The answer is 2,000 pounds. Look at there. Go, Brooke. Oh, you're... Chris, that was a close one. I feel like that one we got it. All right, hey, we got 2 more questions. 2 more. Here we go. All right, so New Year's Eve, thinking towards the next year, all right? What percent of Americans would say that New Year's Eve is their favorite holiday? It's another percent question. What percent? It was actually, it was a little bit higher than I thought it would be. But that's just me. I don't know what you think. It's definitely not 0. Okay. All right. Put them in. All right. The answer is, believe it or not, 28%. We're just not night owls enough,
All the people that got cold.
All right, we got one more. One more here. All right, so everybody knows that the most popular New Year's resolution is to lose weight, start working out, one of those things. So the question is outside of like losing weight or getting in shape, what is the second most popular New Year's resolution? that everybody doesn't keep, that they're done with by the second week of January. So the question is, what New Year's resolution? Put in the comment, not lose weight or exercise or get in shape, not one of those, but the second most common New Year's resolution. All right. Answers are in. Get out of financial debt, credit card, save money, go to church. Robin didn't have one. Marky, what do you got? Spend less. Hey, y'all are smart people. That's right. So the second most common New Year's resolution is to save money or to get out of debt. Hey. Financially related, get in a better financial shape. Here's the question. Was there anybody out there that went 5 for 5? Let us know, the group that you're playing with, or you're playing by yourself, how many did you get right? Put that in the comments, whether you got 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Who won up here? Clint? Clint, did you win? No? Brooke got 1. You got 2? 2? All right. There you go. Put it in the comments. We'll see who's got the most right. Clint loves you. Hey, it's been an exciting morning so far, but we still got a lot to go. We're excited for this year's video. Welcome to Foundation at Home.
So let's start with 2 really simple questions. Where are you, and how did you get here? Now, I'm not saying like, where are you physically, like right now? I mean, living room, kitchen, car, beach somewhere. I'm below deck on a sailboat in the Pacific Ocean. I don't mean like physically where are you at. I mean like emotionally, just life-wise, where are you? And how did you get here? 2 really enormous questions. Now, if we look at the things that kind of we have in common as humanity and our community over the last couple of years, obviously, COVID has to be on everyone's list, right? No matter where we're at, COVID has played a role in how we've gotten to where we are, you know? For a lot of folks, COVID has been a tragedy. There's been so many people that have been lost because of COVID. Fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters. There's been jobs that have been lost because of COVID. We're coming up on about 2 years here in just a couple months. COVID has played an enormous role in shifting and shaping what our community is today. But it's not just COVID. There's been some civil unrest. There's been a lot of ideas and thoughts that have been talked about out loud, some demonstrated upon, and all of those things have shaped and influenced where we are as a community, where you are as a person, whether it's directly or indirectly. It hasn't always been negative things, though, like tension-filled things. There's been a lot of really good things that have happened over the last 2 years. Birthdays. There's been achievements. Milestones that have happened. Goodness, the Braves won the World Series. Come on with it. Can you feel me on that? Let's chop right now. Wherever you're at, doesn't matter. We don't have to do that. You can, though, if you want to. Let's do this. There's been a lot of things that have shaped who we are over the last couple of years that have helped us get to where we are. And honestly, I think those 2 questions are really important. Where are you and how did you get there? And honestly, I think you should have an answer. One a little more detailed than what I just gave, just some general things that have kind of gone back and forth in our culture. I think you need an answer for that. However, I do think that you can't just stop at those 2 questions. Where are you? How did you get there? I honestly think the 3rd question is the most important question. What's next? What's next? Because regardless of where we've been and where we are now and what has happened to get us to where we are now, what's next? Man, that's unknown. The possibilities may be endless. There's a guy that was really close to Jesus, one of Jesus' closest friends. His name's Peter. And Peter went through an enormous shift of emotions, highs and lows, incredible moments and incredible low moments where it feels like his heart was being ripped out of his chest. In fact, he had one of these moments, high-low moments, in a period of about 24 hours. Not really spread over 2 years, though it was happening, but he experienced this extreme in about 24 hours. It started with a guy by the name of John, who was really close to Jesus' cousin. John was preaching and kind of talking about Jesus coming onto the scene, and had done some really great work preparing people's hearts and minds to kind of hear what Jesus had for them. And he got in some legal trouble, not honestly because he had done anything wrong, but because there were some authorities that didn't really like what he was saying. John had an incredible integrity, and it seemed like the government of the day just didn't have any integrity. Shocker. And so the government decided, you know what, enough with this. Well, they took John's life. They come to tell Jesus that his cousin, his friend, his ministry partner had lost his life because of this. And Jesus begins to mourn, but so do Jesus' closest friends. You see, John was on the same team. John was a part of the movement of Jesus, and immediately they're shocked. Like, I cannot believe he's gone. The Bible tells us in the book of Matthew is written by a guy who's with Jesus while this is happening, one of Jesus' other closest friends. And Matthew writes about this moment when they hear about John's death and just kind of the heartache that takes over this team. Jesus in particular needs a little time by himself. And so he says, hey, I need to get away. So guys, let's get in the boat. Let's go across the lake and let's just find a solitary place. And I just need some time. I need to process. And so they get in the boat and they go to the other side. The problem is the crowds heard that Jesus was going to the other side of the lake. I don't know how they found out, but they found out. And so as the boat begins to pull into the harbor, there's thousands and thousands of people waiting for Jesus. And Peter knows. Peter's like the leader of the friends of Jesus, and Peter can see this is not good. This is exactly what we were going from. We needed to get away from this, and Jesus needed some time. And he watches Jesus, and he's wondering how's he going to react to this moment. And Matthew tells us in his book, he says, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. Now, I don't know what Peter thought Jesus was going to do. I can imagine if I'm in Peter's shoes, I'm thinking Jesus is going to say, man, come on, guys. Can you not take me to a place where I can have some time? Can you not see that I'm hurting? Come on, let's get this right. But instead, Jesus leads a completely different way. He sees the crowds, and instead of thinking about himself and his own needs, he decides, man, these people need me. He says he spends the entire day with those people, teaching them and healing their sick. And at the end of the day, they're hungry and it's getting late, and Jesus' friends come to him like, hey, these people need some food, and Jesus is like, well, feed them. He's like, how are we going to feed them? There's 5,000 men plus women and children. Who knows how many people are really here? But there's thousands upon thousands of people. What do you mean? How are we going to feed them? You know? They go out and they find this little boy's lunch, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Jesus prays over it and begins to break that bread and the fish into pieces, and it just keeps breaking over and over and over again. And before you know it, there's enough food to feed the 5,000 men and the thousands of women and children that are all there to see and hear and get close to Jesus. Can you imagine just the emotional high that Peter and all of those guys are on? They're like, man, like we were wrecked. We were trying to get alone, and all of a sudden Jesus leads us in this incredible way towards people with an incredible compassion. And not only does he meet their need, he goes beyond that and does a miracle, like a miracle of miracles, to take this little boy's lunch and multiply it into something that can feed 5,000 plus people. And so, man, they're on the top of the world. In fact, there's 12 basketfuls of food left over when Jesus is done with this miracle. And so, man, they're like, man, this is incredible. What a way to bounce back from an enormous tragedy. But Jesus actually still needs that alone time. And The boys, they realize this. And so they clean up everything and they send the folks home. And it's time for them to head back over the lake. And Jesus says, I'm going to stay here and get some of that alone time that I need to process in this grief. And so the boys hop in the boat and they head back across the lake. Because for them, that's what was next. So the boys had been in the boat for a good bit already. Matthew tells us as he recounts the story that it had been a significant portion of the night. So they're going from one place to another and they're taking this boat across this lake, and it shouldn't take this long to get across this lake. They should already had made much more progress. But Matthew tells us that the ship they were on was being slammed against by these waves that were in this lake. So much so that the word he uses when translated into English means that the boat was being tortured by the waves. You could just imagine being out in the middle of an enormous body of water and the waves are just pounding at the side of the boat. So much so, these are a good number of the boys on this boat are experienced fishermen, so they're digging in. They're trying to get to their destination. It's just not working. You know, they'd had a long day already. What was supposed to be a day where they would go and mourn their ministry partner, where Jesus would kind of lead them in a time with the Father just to mourn someone that was close to them, turned into a complete full day of ministry to over 5,000 people that ended with an incredible high of feeding every single one of them with plenty left over, this miraculous thing out of this little boy's lunch. But you just got to imagine just the mental anguish and just the exhaustion that's setting in. They just want to go home, but they can't. I'm sure as the night begins to unfold, maybe their eyes start playing tricks on them. One of them looks to the side and they see what looks like a man out walking on the water. I'm sure the first thing is they kind of rub their eyes and they're like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? And then when they realize that they rub their eyes and the guy is still there, then the natural explanation is there's a ghost. I mean, there can't actually be a man walking on the water. That's the only thing else. It's legitimately, it's not going away. Matthew tells us that they were terrified. When we asked that question, when they decided to jump in that boat, what was next? What could possibly be next? I'm sure if Peter were to make a top 10 list of what could possibly be next, seeing a ghost in the middle of this lake walking on water would not be on that list. But this would continue to be a day of the unexpected. Peter looks out and suddenly the voice from this body that's standing on the water speaks back to them. It's a familiar voice. In fact, it's Jesus. Jesus is standing there, is 2 feet firmly planted in the water, walking in their direction. He has an interesting ability to show up in the right moments. He has a knack for this. These friends of his, these disciples, these boys are really about spent. And it's in that moment Jesus decides to show up. Isn't it funny how Jesus shows up really in the most inopportune moments? It's like Jesus, we always hear these pastors and these preachers like, man, when you get in the middle of it, whew, that was close. When you get in the middle of it, man, cry out to Jesus, right? Well, I got a better question. Why wasn't Jesus there before they got in trouble? Isn't that the better question? Isn't that a question every single one of us asks? Why wasn't Jesus there before the waves started torturing this boat? That makes sense. If you're really a good God, if you really want to be a good Savior, don't you show up before? Well, I think this might make you even more angry. If we look at verse 22, it actually says as they wrap up their day, as they're kind of bringing their day to a close, Jesus actually makes them get in the boat and sends them into the lake. In other words, Jesus not only doesn't go with them, he sends them into trouble. And now I'm asking, come on now, Jesus. Not only am I a little frustrated that you wait to show up in the midst of my mess, I'm a little frustrated that now I'm actually have some proof and a little picture that you actually sent some of your best friends into trouble. You knew it was coming, and you sent them anyway. And so my question, I guess, for us to wrestle with is, why would he do that? Why would he do that? Because Jesus was there with them. But Jesus was the one that said, hey, get in the boat. In fact, it says immediately get in the boat and go. What if I told you that Jesus would send them into a mess, would send them into trouble? What if I told you that Jesus would send you into a mess, would send you into trouble because he believes in you? Now, I know we often think that we're supposed to be the ones believing in Jesus. But isn't this a little different? That we would actually have some proof that Jesus actually believes in us. Not only does he believe in us, he believes in the best of us. Are you in the midst of a mess right now? We started with two questions. Where are you at and how did you get there? Are you in the middle of a mess? Is it possible that the reason you're in the middle of a mess is because Jesus believes in you? Because Jesus believes in the best of you? That's where Peter and these boys found themselves, in the middle of an enormous mess. One that kept all of their efforts, everything they had, digging in with very little progress. And Jesus shows up in the middle of it because he believes in them. He believes in the best of them. So we come to another place. They're in a mess. Jesus is in the middle of it. What's next? So Peter's trying to figure out what's next. He has Jesus a little ways off, standing in the water. The waves haven't changed. The wind hasn't changed. The boat's still being tortured by both of them. They're still exerting maximum effort for very little results. And again, Jesus is still standing out in the water off the side of the boat. Peter been through just an excruciating 24 hours, just enormous highs and the lowest of lows. And in his mind, he's processing and he's trying to figure out what's next. And so in his mind, he decides, in the midst of all this mess, in the midst of the waves and the wind and the heartache, he decides, I've got to get to Jesus. And so he looks out at Jesus and he says, hey, if it's you, tell me to come to you. And Jesus looks back at him and he just has one word: come. Now, Peter, we don't know this. Matthew doesn't tell us these details. What we do know about Peter is he's a leader. And Peter's typically the guy that's given the directions and in charge. And certainly if Jesus is not there, there's a really good case to be made that he's the guy giving the orders, saying, hey, this is how we're going to get from point A to point B. He's the guy standing behind the captain's wheel. And so he's got this choice to make. Before he asks Jesus, he's in the captain's seat. He's the guy that say, hey, you know what? I'm secure. Like, this might be tough, but at least I know where I'm at. I'm familiar. This boat he's in, he's been a fisherman all his life. I think a lot of us, we have this mindset that we know what life is supposed to be. Man, if we could only put our hands on the wheel, if we could only be the guys driving the ship, that'd be the life. And yet in the midst of this mess, Peter realized there's actually a better place to be, which means he's kind of got to give up the wheel. Instead, he's got to talk to Jesus and say, hey, I'd rather be closer to you than with my hands on the wheel. And so he begins to go over the side of the boat. I don't know if Peter jumps in or lets himself over just a little bit at a time, but what we do know is that Matthew tells us that Peter's feet hit the water and he's standing on water. Peter begins to walk in the direction of Jesus. And he's just, the rest of the guys on the boat, they're all watching this happen. The boys their eyes are locked. They're watching one of their closest friends hop out of a boat. And now don't forget, the only reason they're in a boat is because they're going from one place to another. And the only way to get there is to get in a boat. If they could have walked, they would have walked, right? Water's the same 2,000 years ago as it is today. You still can't walk on it. And so they're watching their best friend get out there and do the thing. Peter's getting a little closer to Jesus, one step at a time. I can't imagine what's going through his mind. And that moment in the middle of all that mess, one step at a time, one foot after another, firmly planting into the water. Man. Jesus is watching it happen. What's interesting is that Jesus has walked all the way out to this boat. The Bible doesn't tell us how far away from land they are, but it's a considerable distance, is what Matthew says. And this considerable distance, Jesus has made it all the way to where he's in, they can visually see him from the side of the boat in the middle of the night. So Jesus is not that far away. And Peter thinks, you know what? He's walked far enough, let me walk to him. Peter's on his way, and suddenly, all of a sudden, Peter starts realizing nothing's changed about his circumstances. Yeah, Jesus is now in the middle of the mess with them, but the circumstances that are the mess have not changed. And Peter is walking amongst the waves that once tortured the side of his boat. Peter is walking in the wind that created those waves that were torturing the side of his boat. And suddenly, Matthew actually tells us that Peter says he can see the wind. Have you ever seen the wind? I've seen the effects of the wind. I've never seen the wind. In fact, I don't know anybody who's ever said they see the wind. Isn't that sometimes how the enemy likes to work? Where we've been called into a place, into a space, into a purpose, where God is bringing us in that direction, and suddenly the enemy says, you know what? I want you to begin to feel and sense and see things that really are of no harm to you. You see, the wind had been there the entire time, even before Peter got out of the boat. The wind had been there when Peter took his first step onto the water. There's no problem then. Peter starts inching his way closer to Jesus, still no problem, but suddenly, all of a sudden, he sees it. It becomes a problem. Now, Peter has this mindset that I wish I could have. You see, Peter's first response back when things were not all that great and Jesus shows up was, I need to get to Jesus, so let me walk on some water. The same mindset. Peter begins to be distracted by the wind, and immediately his mind goes to, let me put my eyes on Jesus. He looks at Jesus and says, save me. And Jesus reaches out his hand through the wind and takes Peter's hand and pulls him up. And he looks at Peter and he says something that it just kind of sits weird with me. Maybe you'll feel the tension too. He looks at Peter and says, you have little faith. Now I'm thinking, hold on, Jesus. Wait a second. Peter's the guy that got out of the boat and just walked on water because he had an enormous... If Peter has the little faith, what do the boys back in the boat have? You know what I'm saying? If Peter's the one with the little faith, what's the boys in the boat got? But see, in this moment, Jesus is not just looking at the moment at hand. He's looking at the moments that are to come. You see, we started this little piece here. Why would Jesus send you into trouble? Because he believes in you. But not only does he believe in you, he believes in the very best of you. And in this moment, the rest of those boys on the boat were starting to get a glimpse of what it looks like to have the very best kind of faith. A walk on water kind of faith. And just for a moment, Peter's faith begins to slip. And it's in that moment Jesus wants to remind him, hey, I made you for more. I made you to do something like walk on water. You see, I see the best in you. And I want to challenge you. I want to stretch you. I want to pull you a little bit. I want to push you in a direction that allows you to understand that if you follow me, you're capable of so much more. So something we seldom think about is that after they have this conversation of the little faith, Peter and Jesus, they actually have to get back to the boat. And so we see that the boys are watching and they see Jesus reach down and pick up Peter out of the water as he's sinking in it. And they watch him have the conversation, and then they watch Jesus put his arm around Peter and begin to walk back to the boat. And then they get to watch their leader and their best friend walk together on water. I just can't imagine what must be going through their minds. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes in this very moment. Like I'm sitting here in the middle of the Pacific, and I just can't imagine what it would look like for one of our guys here to be walking on water, much less to see Jesus walking with them. That's just out of this world. But it brings us to the question we've been asking all morning. What's next? Peter and Jesus, they've made their way back to the boat, walking on water the entire time. As they get into the boat, they're still kind of wrapping their mind around this question, what could possibly be next? Let me give you a brief recap of the last 24 hours. Their ministry partner, John, he loses his life to a king who's incredibly corrupt. News comes to this crew of friends, and they've got to get away. I mean, they're mourning the loss of one of their best friends. So they decide to get alone. The problem is the crowds follow them. So they go from this emotional low to this annoying moment of these crowds just continuing to press in, wanting to be a part of what they're doing. Peter and these boys, they get to look at Jesus and see an incredible show of compassion, where Jesus says, you know what, I can put my personal stuff on hold for a moment because these people need me. So Jesus presses in, teaches and heals their sick all day. And at the end of the night, he provides a feast of feasts from a boy's lunch. 5 loaves, 2 fish, feeds 5,000 plus people in an instant. They jump on this boat, tortured by the winds and the waves. They're stuck, maximum effort, little results. And then Jesus shows up, walking on water. Peter's first idea when he begins to think through, what do I need to do? I need to get to Jesus in the middle of my mess. So he asks to walk out to him, and Jesus says, come. And then those boys get to watch 2 people walk on water. Jesus, the Son of God. I actually think my mind can get there. But Peter, come on, baby. Man, what a 24 hours. But would you believe me if I told you what's next was actually the most impressive, most important, most incredible moment in this entire day? You see, when Peter and Jesus get back in the boat, Matthew records what happens. He says that all the boys in the boat, they look at Jesus and they say this, truly, you are the Son of God. In fact, he goes so far to say they begin to worship him on this boat. Man, when I think through all of the things that has transpired in the last 24 hours, feeding the 5,000, an incredible show of compassion, all those things, walking on water, I would think that one of those 3 things, man, that would be the most impressive thing, but that ain't it. It's these boys that have given their all, watched it all, connect the dots. This isn't just some magic man. This Jesus is something incredibly special. He's the Son of God. I think when we begin to wrestle with this ourselves, church, what we really need to recognize, what we really need to wrestle with is the answer to what's next, because what's next impacts the way people see Jesus. This entire day we've been asking, what's next? someone close to us passes away, so what's next? We need to get a loan, but we can't, so what's next? We have compassion on people and we feed them, so what's next? We're struggling and being tortured by the winds and the waves, things that are outside of our control, so what's next? Jesus shows up in the middle of our mess, so what's next? We go to Jesus, so what's next? And all of those things, when you string them together, a string of what's next, leaves us to this conclusion. All of those what's next points to who Jesus is. And the rest of the guys that get to watch this interaction between Peter and Jesus, they come to the conclusion, because all of the what's next, that Jesus is the Son of God. Church, I'm telling you, I don't know how you got to where you are or where you're at, but this is what I do know. Depending on what you do next, man, you could have an incredible impact in the lives of those who are around you. No matter where you're at, no matter how you got there, what's next matters, because what's next impacts the way other people see, perceive, and view Jesus. So for 2022, what's next for you? My hope and my prayer, and my hope is that it becomes our hope and our prayer, that as we look at the political climate, as we look at the community climate and the culture that we're living in, as we take a look at the storm damage that's happened in our city, and the way that we recover from that, as we take a look at everything that's happening in the landscape of our lives, that we would say 2022 for sure, I want to make sure that what's next for me and my family, or me as a person individually, points people to Jesus. What if we have the highest of highs in 2022, but nobody as a result of those highest of highs begin to see Jesus any differently than they did today? Man, we will have missed the opportunity. But the opportunity hadn't come yet. It's just beginning. So I'm asking you, church, what's next? What's next? Let's make the most of it this year. Let's get it. What's next?
So what's next? What's next for us is we get to meet back in person next Sunday at Ruth Hill Elementary School at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. But what's next for you? If you're interested in taking a next step this morning, or just walking through some next step options, we would love for you to text the keyword NEXT to 678-661-6330. Now, I can't wait to hear from you and discover what's next for you. But we are also super pumped about Birthday Sunday.
Foundation fam, here's the deal. We are about 14 days away from celebrating our 4th birthday as church. Come on with it. Come on with it. Now, with any good birthday party, there's always invitations, right? And so this is our invitation right now to you. We do gather together on this coming Sunday on the 9th, but then birthday Sunday is the following Sunday, the 16th. And so this is your invitation. Come on with it. And here's the deal. You know, also, not only do you have invitations for birthdays, there's also presents and gifts. And so we have them for you because you are turning 4. How about that? Birthday Sunday on the 16th. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning at Foundation at Home, at my home. And I can't wait to see you at Foundation soon. Happy birthday! You see, now it's just...